So hello, Mr. Ubels. Thank you very much for accepting FIABCI's invitation to be a part of our FIABCI Rendez-vous series. It's great to have you with us for this first ever episode. Although this is not the first time that we've met or that we've had the pleasure of listening to you, back when in-person events were still possible, and when you were still the Chief Technology Officer at Edge Technologies, you delivered a very interesting keynote presentation at one of our events, the FIABCI Global Business Summit, in December 2019 in Ghent, Belgium. And I remember, again, it was a very visually appealing presentation, and you addressed the need for better, greener buildings, and it's part of why we invited you today to speak with us. And we'll talk about that in a minute, about green buildings. But before we dive right into the main questions, I would like to ask you to briefly introduce yourself and talk a little bit about how the past year has been for you, with the global outbreak and everything.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me again. I'm feeling very honored to be the first on this episodes of your what is it called, podcast, video cast. Yeah, very delighted to talk to you again. Obviously, I also remember our face-to-face meeting, and it seems to be a long time ago, especially as you said, with this whole COVID thing happening. Yeah, so this is an interesting time because initially when COVID started, everybody was talking about, we will never go back to the office, we will always work from home. And now you already see the first kind of post-COVID research that people actually want to go back to the office. They definitely will work more from home than they did before, but there will still be a huge demand for offices. And I think COVID, with all the bad things, it also did something else. It started to signal to all the people, employers, builders, investors, that we do need smarter, better buildings, not only for energy, but also for health, security, safety, and feeling happy and being productive. So I think a very interesting time. And in the middle of that, I decided to start working on my own. I do now projects for investors, actual building projects, all kind of different people in different roles related to smart buildings to help them to actually develop smarter, better buildings. Not only the technology, but just about everything related to smart buildings.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about before you start your smart building consulting firm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I never imagined in my life to end up in the smart building industry. I was doing absolutely fine at Deloitte as an IT CIO in charge for technology in the widest sense of the meaning. And then by coincidence, thinking about I need to do something else in the last 10, 15 years of my career. Deloitte didn't like that too much. So they offered me the job to also take charge of what was called a facilities organization, which is also including real estate, cleaning, catering, just about everything you do to keep the buildings up and running at the company. And at the same time, they told me that we would build then a new office in Amsterdam. And I started out doing that and very quickly realized that people were talking about smart buildings, but they basically meant energy efficiency of buildings and nothing else. So we really quickly started to ask, what does it actually do for our people? How does it become a smart people, and how do we become a more attractive employer? Not that we were not an attractive employer, but we realized that especially for the young people in the talent Deloitte was looking for, that a smart building needs to be much more than just energy efficiency. So the whole user experience, the productivity, the daylight experience, the health and well-being, all of those things. So I ended up kind of coincidentally into the smart building industry. And I have a bit of a strange combination of careers behind me in electronics and IT, then into facilities and then into buildings. And I can honestly say that at the moment really helps me to give me a huge holistic view on what a smart building needs to be at the end of the day.
Thank you for that. Well, you basically answered the first question. How did you find the transition from IT and electronics to real estate and construction sector? So I guess we can move on to the next one, which is, what do you think is the main role of technology in buildings?
Yeah, I prize myself happy that I always, even though I'm a technician from origin, electronics, IT, and I love it, I'm very passionate about it. At the same time, I think I very quickly realized that technology is just an enabler. Technology is not an objective on itself. Technology should support anything we want to do with the building. So energy efficiency, optimizing the maintenance, predictive maintenance, of course, but also supporting the people in the building, from building access, from calling the elevator, from controlling the heat, from controlling the light levels, managing the audiovisual, ordering coffee, booking a room, just about anything you can imagine. But technology is just an enabler. And I think that we should make sure that that's stays that way and that it does not become a gadget. Because I have a philosophy. I got drawers full of gadgets, don't get me wrong, I love it. But I also know what they are. They are devices you love to play with in the first couple of days till the point the batteries run out, and then they end up in a drawer. And that's something we don't want to happen in a building. So it should be functional. There should be a business case for it. But again, it's an enabler, and that's what it is.
Okay. And well, similar to this question, what makes a smart building successful for you from your perspective?
Yeah, of course. I mean, by coincidence or not, but that's, I think, exactly, the nail we hit with the hammer when we did the edge, without knowing it, maybe even. I'm not going to claim there was this huge master plan when we started developing the edge. But by coincidence, we hit the whole sustainability, energy performance, daylight experience, the way the building was designed by the architect, the whole experience getting into the building, the large atrium. You are being part of a live part of the building. You see other people walking around, and we got the technology right, and all the services and the amenities, like the food and the fitness and the brasserie, all of these things together. So I have this quote on LinkedIn, which I give a lot of thought before I figured out what to put on my LinkedIn to draw some attention. Now I'm self-employed, but it says, a smart building is that in which the design, sustainability, and technology provide for the health and well-being of humans and come seamlessly together. And that's what it is for me. We build buildings for people at the end of the day. Obviously, we have huge amounts of stakeholders, investors, developers, building engineers, but at the end of the day, we do make buildings for people. And that's what it's all about for me.
Thank you. So it's only natural that now we move to the topic of the edge building. You already give a little taste of that. The smartest and greenest building in the world. Can you perhaps talk a little bit about that, and particularly what made this building go viral at the time?
Yeah, that's a question I get a lot of times, as you can imagine, even today. I mean, after 7 years in operation, that's amazing how many people ask about the edge building still. For me, it's I'm still super proud, don't get me wrong. But of course, I know we can do so much better now than we did at that time. It still has a couple of unique features which worked out super. I mean, the design and therefore the daylight experience, the acoustics, all of that have been a tremendous part of the success of that building for the people. The fact that it's sustainable, it has never reached more than 50% of the expected energy consumption, which is quite amazing, even till today. Now people talk about Paris proof and all of those kind of things. But what made it go viral? You know what? On the right time, on the right moment, the right place. And that is, nobody else was building buildings at that time. We were in the economic crisis, as you remember. So I always say, the journalists and people who write magazines, they were all looking for somebody who still builds a building. So you got a lot of press attention. We're doing something innovative stuff with the technology. Internet of Things was becoming out of age. The first machine learning, AI capabilities came into the place. So I think it's the unique combination and the fact that we we worked with Philips for the light system, and with Schneider Electric with all of the latest and greatest technology. So suddenly you get this huge amount of people who start writing about it, in combination with some crazy things we did. That's what made the building go viral. And then obviously, finally, Bloomberg coming in, making this 4 minute video, which went viral. So I would never claim it was us, either Deloitte or the real estate developer who did that. It's just coincidence, right time, right moment, right place. So, yeah.
And what was your role in the development of the Edge building?
Well, actually, Deloitte already decided to build a building over there in that location. So there was a preliminary design from the architects, obviously, and then, when I got involved for facilities, I more or less took over the role with the real estate group in the facilities organization of Deloitte. And the first thing I did is start looking at what's the plan, what are we going to build, why is it called smart, and then what I thought we can do much better in about every area of the building. So adding more to the sustainability, adding more to the whole user experience. For years, I had this crazy idea of why are we not running LED light on what is called DC voltage. I don't want to go into the technology, but of course we convinced Philips to actually build such a system for us. I wanted to have more sensors. I wanted to know what's going on in our buildings. How can we actually optimize it for the people we're looking for? So it's a unique combination. And then, the whole team, as well as the developer, as well as some of the engineering companies, started to get into a modus of, oh yeah, let's do something better. Let's be more innovative. Let's stretch or push the boundary, if you like. But yeah, there's always somebody crazy enough to put his neck on the table, and that was me. And lucky enough, it worked out quite well. Yeah.
What were the main challenges you encountered?
I think the main challenge is the fragmentation of the industry, which is still a big problem. So you have the architect who makes an amazing design. Then you have the engineering companies who all by themselves do whatever they do in their little domain. So the electricity guys and the light guys, the elevator guys and the plumbing, et cetera, and the HVAC people. But it doesn't come together very well, which is a huge challenge. As reported by the World Economic Forum in several reports. That's still a lot the case, I must say, even though BIM promises to bring this together. The fragmentation of the industry is still a big problem. And then, of course, the fact that people like to copy and paste what they've done before. So when you say, I want to have LED running on DC voltage with sensors, they all tell you you're crazy. And then lucky enough, I'm saying, well, LED LED has been around for 30 years. DC voltage has been around for 30 years. Power over Ethernet exists, sensors exist. So Philips, please glue it together for me. And that's the kind of approach we took. And I think we did that in a lot of different areas. So pushing the boundaries of what people are used to do is, I think, the main role I had. Imagine where we would be able to go with the building.
And looking into the future, what do you expect the modern workplace look like? And if you can also give us a few trends that you imagine.
Yeah, I think, even before COVID, companies like Deloitte, typically accounting, consulting, law firms, information worker kind of people, whatever you want to call them, the banks, they all start to realize that the building becomes a part of who they are, what they signal to society, how do you attract the best talent in the world. The war of talent is obviously a huge driver. Now boosted by COVID, we all want to go back to the office, but we don't want to go back to the traditional office. So it's either called activity-based working or whatever nice name we give it. But I think having a huge amount of flexibility, I don't think there's anyone who can actually tell you the answer on what is a modern or what is the answer to a modern office. I know one thing for sure, it needs to be super flexible. I cannot imagine that the layout of a floor is going to stay around much longer than 8 to 10 years. which is of course quite different than in the past. You want to have different kind of areas where you can sit and work, concentrated, non-concentrated, connected with your colleagues, drinking coffee, playing a game, going to the fitness, whatever. So it needs to be, I sometimes call it the super Starbucks. And then people think, why do you call it super Starbucks? But of course it won't be a Starbucks. But I think I want to have the freedom to move around and to choose the area to work as much as I like it at that moment. I cannot expect that we would go back to office and work there for 8 or 9 hours in a row in the same place. And obviously it has to make sure that it's completely frictionless. So you want to get access, you want to get to the elevator, you want to control the audiovisuals, the video conferencing, whatever you need to do. And it needs to be smooth and easy. And that's what I think will happen. And obviously you have to have great coffee and food and the ability to go to fitness, sports, whatever you want to do. So I think that's what a building will do. It needs to be super flexible and adjust to whatever you need to do at that time.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ubels. It was great having you with us for this first ever episode of the FIABCI Rendez-vous. And I hope we have opportunities to meet again, hopefully in person when COVID-19.
Yeah, let's hope that will be soon, because I think we're all looking forward to that moment. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.